An idea that has been posited since Secret of the Mimic release has been the idea that all of Murray's Costume Manor, the house on the hill, and the massive underground labyrinth gets bought up by William Afton and Fazbear Entertainment after MCM burns down, eventually becoming the Afton household and part of, or the basis behind, the sister location bunker and all of Afton's experiments. The biggest proponents of this are the fact that William himself discusses buying out the land MCM and the house are built upon, and that after MCM burns down and Murray disappears, Fazbear, or rather William, comes in and does what he wants with it without issue. We even see this in the New Game Plus ending, where David's room is very similar to the FNAF 4 bedroom seen during gameplay, which also happens to be one of the bunker experiment rooms. This is a theory I really agree with, and I think makes sense, if it wasn't for one thing. In Security Breach and Ruin, we find Freddy Fazbear's pizza place underneath the Pizzaplex, which itself is connected to many industrial underground tunnels and a scooper room that we see in Ruin. Seemingly like sister location is also underneath the Pizzaplex and the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Simulator building. There are also heavy connections to the pizza place being the same building as Fredbear's. Fredbear posters are found in Security Breach, as well as a Fredbear cutout in Ruin in the same tunnels the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Sim building is connected to, implying that the FNAF 6 building is the same as Fredbear's. There are also numerous other pieces of information from FNAF 6 that subtly imply that that building is also Fredbear's. This does, however, make some issues with the whole MCM becoming the sister location bunker. Due to the sister location maps, we know that some sort of Fredbears existed near Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rentals bunker, likely above it. So how can there be a Fredbear's Family Diner at the same time MCM existed and before the Afton house we know is built upon them, and those MCM tunnels become the Afton bunker? I think there's a way to rectify this. There are two options we could go from here. The Fredbears that we see in FNAF 4 is not real. We know from the sister location bunker map that all of FNAF 4 is connected to sister location, the main gameplay, fun with plush trap, and even the daytime minigame segments. All of the minigame segments were simply recreations of the real world for experience, similar to the story Didophobia. If you don't know what Didophobia is, it is the book that released in Tales of the Pizzaplex that pretty much explains all of FNAF 4. FNAF 4 were experiments run by William Afton using hallucinogenic gas to induce fear into subjects, specifically in this story, Rory. Now, does the story happen in the games? That's here or there. If Rory exists in the game timeline, we're not entirely sure. But the concepts that this story gives us fully explain what is going on in FNAF 4 and sister location. So taking that into consideration, maybe Afton uses the R&D Freddies that's underneath Murray's Costume Manor as a basis for recreating Fredbears. This would also explain why Fredbears is connected to Circus Babies and needs power. If it isn't the true Fredbears, which at the time of sister location would either be abandoned or owned by someone else, why would it need power from the sister location system? This R&D Freddies could have also been turned into the Pizzeria Simulator building, and could explain all of this connectivity that we see in Security Breach and Ruin. However, I don't think Henry would have raised the R&D Freddies to the surface to create the Pizza Sim building, which we know must be above ground for people being able to even enter the place to begin with, and for animatronics to be in the back alley, and the fact that we know that there was a sinkhole incident that presumably brought Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place down into the sinkhole for the Pizzaplex to be built over top of it. Now the other option, and the one I feel fits better, even if it makes things a bit more complicated, is that the minigame map is the true map of the ground above the sister location bunker, at least an approximation. The only problem is Fredbears exists at the same time MCM is still standing, so there would have to be another Fredbears before the one we see in FNAF 4. I know, stating that there are two Fredbears is wild, but if MCM and Murray's house do become the Afton house and the underground sister location bunker, which is connected to the Pizzeria Simulator building, heavily implied to be Fredbears, that would be from FNAF 4, and we have a game set in 1979 where Fazbear Entertainment and Fredbear's Family Diner exist already, it just does not work. Now, of course, the Afton House and the Underground Bunker might not be MCM, but it's too similar to not at least consider. The FNAF 4 minigames show Fredbears in walking distance to the Afton House. Even Midnight Motorist has the presumably old building close to the Afton House, now renovated from Fredbears to Junior's Bar. This also runs us down the rabbit hole of Charlie pretty much needing to be killed outside of a Freddy's, which the FNAF 2 movie seems to be going with, and also dies after the Crying Child, which I do believe that's the case, but that's a different video. It's a little confusing, so let's lay it out a bit more clearly about what exactly I think is going on here. And this is all just me postulating about what exactly the series of events could have been here. Now, Secret of the Mimic has 3 posters first introduced in Security Breach. The same posters hinting that the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Sim building was Fredbear's. These posters, in better condition, show up in Secret of the Mimic, along with a vinyl record demonstration disc, as well with the same Fredbear Singing Show poster from Security Breach that implies Fredbear is much older than a 1970s or 80s creation. The kicker about this particular demonstration record, however, is that they were first introduced in the 60s. Meaning that, along with the poster, this record disc is giving us a clear look into Fredbear and Fazbear Entertainment being older than we thought, and perhaps a clear line of evolution. Fredbear's Singing Show could have been some old cartoon created by someone else decades ago in the 30s or 40s, before William and Henry ever came along. Perhaps even Murray's Costume Manor could have been in possession of this old cartoon IP for a while and just simply did nothing with it. Maybe Murray Sr. created it. We don't know. Now, if Henry was working at Murray's, which is another theory I quite like, and was then stolen by Afton to start their business, Fazbear Entertainment, sometime in the late 60s perhaps, Fredbear's Singing Show as an IP could have been something Henry took before he left, as the mailbox messages and tapes in Secret of the Mimic imply employees would steal stuff after leaving Edwin, specifically to start their own businesses in Stan's case, or to give it to Fazbear Entertainment. From here, William then inserts his persona of Spring Bonnie, and they create Fredbear's Family Diner. But not the Fredbears we see in FNAF 4 that is near the Afton House, but a different location. The first location. The one with just Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, perhaps even felt costume suits from MCM, and specifically the Fredbear with the black hat and bow tie and more brown hair. Perhaps even the Freddy from the FNAF 2 minigame that first gives us a glimpse into what happened to Charlie. And while doing all of this, they give a Fredbear Singing Show demo vinyl to MCM to see if they can market through them to get Fredbear out to more people. And then this partnership blooms into what we see in Secret of the Mimic. Lots of collaboration between Henry and Edwin, merchandise of Fredbear via MCM, and the restaurant project that ultimately dooms Murray's Costume Manor. After that whole debacle and MCM burns down, Afton then builds his house and now has a whole underground bunker system to play with. A new Fredbear's is then built on top of the MCM ruins near the Afton House, with a playground right next door as well. Now, at some point, Crying Child is accidentally killed, and the Fredbear's next to Afton's house closes and becomes the bar Junior's for a time. From here, either the original Fredbear's is also closed, or was closed for years, or stays open, and maybe even becomes Freddy's, or simply closes as well after Charlie's death, or even something to do with Fall Fest far before Crying Child is killed. Of course, years go by and all the events of FNAF take place until Henry can get the old MCM Fredbears and opens the FNAF 6 trap, burning that same ground again with another cleansing fire. And the massive Pizzaplex is built on top like we see in Security Breach and Ruin. Now, could there be a way to wrap all this around without there needing to be 2 Fredbears? I've stated before, the Fredbears we see in FNAF 4 could just be fake. But we know Fazbear Entertainment in the late 70s wasn't some fledgling company. If it had bank to pull people from Murray's Costume Manor and buy out all that land pretty easily, I could very easily see other diner locations existing at the same time, or at least similar type of establishments. Secret of the Mimic even has a letter message implying Fazbear was pulling someone to run a franchise location. Now, whether that someone was Henry or just simply someone else, it's kind of up in the air, but take with that as you will. Maybe Charlie actually was killed outside of a Fredbear's, just not the one that we know that closed down in 1983 due to the bite of 83. Maybe the true first location had the Fredbear with the black hat instead of the purple one, explaining why the posters would show Fredbear with a black hat and bow tie, as well as more brown fur. Another possibility is that William and Henry, as co-owners of Fazbear Entertainment, each had their own diners to run as they pleased, explaining differences in designs and perhaps why Afton lives so close to the one we see in FNAF 4 and Sister Location. Perhaps there's one in Hurricane, as well as one in New Harmony, like Fredbear's was in the novel trilogy. There's lots to think about here, but I wanted to add to this discussion because I don't think anyone has discussed this possibility. I didn't even think it was a possibility until speaking to someone on Twitter about it and bringing up that, hey, maybe they were making new Springlock suits for another Fredbears when talking about the Spring Bonnie and Fredbear suits in the R&D Freddies. Now, I don't believe that's what they were being used for. I think they were being used for the new Freddy Fazbear's location, but it got my mind thinking about this. If the underground parts of MCM do become the Circus Babies Entertainment and Rentals bunker, and the Murray house does become the Afton house, then there must be some other Fredbears that we've never seen before to rectify how Fredbear's Family Diner and Fazbear Entertainment can exist before that land was ever available to be used for the Fredbears we see in FNAF 4. Again, I do think the other possibility could work, but I just don't see how an underground fake pizzeria could then be brought above ground to do what Henry needs to be done in Pizza Sim. Especially with how kind of different it looks in Security Breach and Ruin to how it looks in Secret of the Mimic. The Secret of the Mimic build is pretty clearly the Help Wanted build for FNAF 1, not the Security Breach build for Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place. But it's just something to think about. And another Fredbear's, I feel logically and practically makes sense here. But that's just my little theory and thoughts on the possibility of a Fredbear's before Fredbear's. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.